THNG. Global Supply Chain Management. Emerging markets in supporting our global supply chains. The strategic nature of supply chain management drives how we leverage the location of global activities. We provide some important definitions and distinctions, discuss the internal and external integration of supply chain functions, and highlight some of the performance benefits of global supply chains. We conclude this discussion by highlighting the 8 integrating processes that cut across all global supply chains. Given all these topics to be covered, this opening chapter will have good reason to be a potpourri. But by the time we get through the book and to Chapter 8, Managing Global Supply Chains, the structure should be clear in the best spirit of not only global supply chains, but best value strategic global supply chains. Let's start by taking a look at global trade and global supply chains. Global trade and global supply chains. By some estimates, 90% of today's global demand is not fully met and satisfied by local supply. And as shown in Figure 1.1, international trade across countries' borders has increased dramatically in the last few decades. From a supply chain standpoint, this means that the global marketplace is highly dependent on global supply chains. Northern and Southern hemispheres. After all, global strategy explains 70% of a multinational firm's performance. A number that has remained steady over the past decade and is forecasted to stay the same for at least the next 5 years. More important, global supply chains, on average, explain about 20% of a multinational firm's strategic performance in the global marketplace today and are predicted to explain 25% in 5 years. Firms such as AB, 22% of AB's strategy is based on supply chains, AB InBev, 21%, Amex, 16%, ArcelorMittal, 21%, Cemex, 15%, Daimler, 13%, Dell, 23%, FedEx, 14%, Microsoft, 19%, Nestle, 21%, Nokia, 21%, OMV Group, 17%, Siemens, 22%, Scandia, 19%, Swatch, 18%, and Unilever, 21%, are acutely aware of the importance of global strategic supply chains for the worldwide performance of their businesses. In this opening chapter, we introduce a number of key concepts to help understand and position the global opportunity facing supply chain management in the modern business world. In essence, in Chapter 1 of the book, we broadly tackle a potpourri of reasons for strategic global supply chain management and provide a skeleton framework for it. Our journey begins with understanding global trade and global supply chains. Then we review the important role of emerging markets in supporting our global supply chains. The strategic nature of supply chain management drives how we leverage the location of global activities. We provide some important definitions and distinctions, discuss the internal and external integration of supply chain functions, and highlight some of the performance benefits of global supply chains. We conclude this discussion by highlighting the 8 integrating processes that cut across all global supply chains. Given all these topics to be covered, this opening chapter will have good reason to be a potpourri. But by the time we get through the book and to Chapter 8, Managing Global Supply Chains, the structure should be clear in the best spirit of not only global supply chains, but best value strategic global supply chains. Let's start by taking a look at global trade and global supply chains. Global trade and global supply chains. By some estimates, 90% of today's global demand is not fully met and satisfied by local supply. And as shown in Figure 1.1, international trade across countries' borders has increased dramatically in the last few decades. From a supply chain standpoint, this means that the global marketplace is highly dependent on global supply chains. 7. To provide the buying and supplying infrastructure that the world has come to depend on over the past several years. In essence, the incredible growth in world trade observed over the past decade has been driven largely by the effective development and implementation of global supply chains. This begs the question: Has your firm kept up with the globalization of supply chains, and will you be able to leverage your chains to increase their globalization by the predicted 25% in the next 5 years and 43% in the next 10 years? If not, you are likely to fall behind, and your operation risks losing its competitive edge. What is even more important is strategically leveraging global supply chains. That is, you should incorporate your supply chains into your overall corporate strategies and leverage them as much as you do your products, market participation, marketing, and competitive moves to achieve global competitiveness. Global supply chains are critical for the new breed of firms that are becoming major players in the global marketplace. The old blueprint of starting by serving one or a small set of countries using a diversified conglomerate approach is available to only a select few companies in each industry. Some say that no more than 3 firms can and will fit this past reality blueprint in the future. Instead, the emerging reality is that firms will develop much more around focused businesses that go global soon after their inception or their reconfiguration and then thrive in a globally integrated economy. As a result, the major competitors of the past, which could be seen from miles away because of their domestic and global footprint are not the main threat anymore. The new threat is the firm that uses global supply chain strategies to get its products out effectively to a large number of customers in a globally integrated economy. This firm does so with more limited product lines and product assortments than the massive conglomerates we were 8. Accustomed to in the past. This is all about what makes firms unique, and uniqueness comes in many forms. Consider this restaurant interaction. 1 minute you are surrounded by friends, and the next minute you are standing alone at the bar. A woman walks up and without hesitation asks, "What makes you unique?" The normal pattern of introductions or even a common icebreaker does not happen. Instead, "What makes you unique?" opens the dialogue. While this may be a true story, we will leave that bar interaction, but think about the question. What makes you unique is really what it is all about in global supply chains. We take a number of people working for a number of organizations with access to a number of resources, and we create a global supply chain. The intention is to make the chain competitive in the marketplace, preferably emphasizing core competencies that can sustain the chain's value-added features and maintain the firm's competitiveness for some time. In effect, it is like shifting views through a window. If we look out the window through the center of the glass, we are likely to see a lot of things outside. If we start moving toward the frame of the window, we are likely to still see some or even most of what is outside. But if we move our head to the left or right of the window frame, what do we see? Most likely, a wall and none of what's outside. The same logic holds when it comes to stressing uniqueness and core competencies in multinational corporations. Firms that focus their efforts on the middle of the window by leveraging their core competencies to compete in the global marketplace are more likely to be successful than those that overly customize or veer to the left or the right. That is often caused by creating too much diversification of operations to satisfy the various needs of the global marketplace. Firms are at their best when they do what they are best at doing. Global supply chains are the same. Being vertically integrated in order to exercise more control in global supply chains is not helpful if it results in reduced effectiveness. Similarly, involving additional firms in the chain without seeing a true value-added benefit leads to trouble not only in terms of providing total value from the full global supply chain, but also in terms of having extra layers and linkages that require coordination, integration, and investment. These result in additional cost centers. Every node, activity, and resource used in a global supply chain should result in value being added to the chain in the sense of a reduced total cost. The total value analysis of global supply chains is a strategic, somewhat dynamic, and continuous process. A half-century ago, the United States produced roughly 40% of the world's output. Today, that figure is about 20%. China has quadrupled its output in the past 50 years, while Europe is holding steady at about 20%. In addition, we know that the so-called BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China are important in terms of both population and economic output. 3. For example, we know that many firms have sought out specific areas of expertise in these BRIC countries, such as call center operations in India. So the issue is not so much where we have found leverage points before or where they are now, but instead where they will be in the future. Global supply chains thrive because they coordinate and integrate the best that the globe has to offer to provide the greatest value possible to the system. Firms demand this, supply chain members demand it, and customers demand it. This requires global competence on the part of firms, their employees, and their supply chain partners. Our customers are global, and they demand global solutions to their local and global needs. Most of all, they demand value. That value has to be sought in developed markets, newly industrialized countries, emerging 9. Markets, and even less developed markets. Most firms, though,